Thanks, Cathaoirleach. Minister, your government has set a target of 120,000 homes to be retrofitted by next year and 500,000 by 2030. But in 2022 and 2023, only 10,300 of these were fully state-funded under the Warmer Home schemes. More than twice as many applications were received as were carried out. There's currently a wait list of 2 to 3 years. Given the dire climate emergency we're facing, isn't it time for a massive increase in fully state-funded retrofitting?
Thank you indeed, Deputy. The Climate Action Plan does set, as you say, ambitious targets to retrofit the equivalent of 500,000 homes to a building energy rating of B2, cost optimal basis, and the installation of 400,000 heat pumps to existing homes to replace older, less efficient heating systems by the end of this decade. The National Retrofit Plan sets out the Government's approach to deliver on these targets. Output is really ramping up under the plan, reaching 27,200 houses in 2022, rising to nearly 48,000 for 7,950 in 2023. One of the key principles in underpinning the retrofit plan is fairness. We need to ensure fairness to all and support a just transition. For that reason, the Warmer Home Scheme is a key priority in the Government's package of supports for retrofit. The Warmer Home Scheme delivers a range of energy efficiency measures free of charge to households vulnerable to energy poverty. Increased awareness of the multiple benefits of retrofit and significant improvements to the upgrades provided under the Warm Home Scheme has resulted, as you say, in increased levels of demand for the scheme, with approximately 24,000 applications being received by SEI in 2022 and 2023. Recent years have also seen very significant increases in the budget allocations for the scheme. Expenditure on the scheme stood at just under 40 million in 2019, the year before this government came into office. Last year saw the highest ever spend under the scheme with almost 158 million. Half of our overall spend delivered approximately 5,900 fully funded upgrades for households at risk of energy poverty. The average waiting time for applications to completion decreased from 26 months in 2022 to stand at 20 months last year. In order to help ensure further growth in delivery, this year the budget for the scheme has again increased significantly to nearly €210 million. This includes funding from the European Regional Development Fund. My officials continue to work with SAI to maximise and accelerate the output of free energy upgrades provided under the scheme.
Minister, just Deputy Murphy, and then a 1-minute supplementary from Deputy Conroy Walsh, and then back to the Minister.
Thanks, Minister. I hope you're not saying that waiting times of 20 months are in any way acceptable. These are not just green environmental measures that we're talking about. They're a perfect example of environmental measures that improves people's lives, reduce carbon emissions, bring people's bills down. We're talking about some of the poorest households in the country. Working family on poverty wages who get the working family payment, carers, single-parent families, people with disabilities, pensioners whose incomes are low enough to qualify for the fuel allowance. These are people who are living in energy poverty right now, who are faced with the choice between heating and eating on a daily basis. They can't afford to wait almost 2 years for these energy upgrades. Everyone, or the vast majority of people who get the Warmer Home Scheme done say, this is great, this is fantastic, it's exactly the sort of environmental measure that we need. But we need more funding, and what you've outlined there isn't a sufficient increase. If we're getting twice as many applications as is being done, increasing the funding by, 25% isn't going to get on top of it, and we're going to continue to have extremely long waiting lists.
I think we need to be honest here. When you've gone from 40 million in the lifetime of this government expenditure on this to 210 million, show me another example. We should be honest here in terms of, is that not a significant, incredible increase? 40 to 210. And the great thing we know is, thanks to the carbon tax which you oppose, is that going to increase the same again next year? Predictable, so you can get the workers, so you can actually reduce the waiting times, because we set up a system in place that we know it's going to grow every year, because we're going to give half the money we raise in carbon tax going to retrofitting to the poorest homes. And that's why, and this is deeply popular, and at the same time as well, but we've also changed the nature of the work that's done. It's gone from shallow to deep. The average payment when we came into office was 12,000. Now it's 24. So we're going much further in the houses we go into. Double the amount of spending in each home. And yes, it's hugely popular, and yes, there are loads of examples out there. I'd love to be able to go to every single house tomorrow. But the number of applications in the lifetime of this government have gone from 5,682, last year 13,983, because it's 100% grant funded into privately owned housing, but people who are living in real risk of fuel poverty, so it's the right place to target. So we're all agreed this is the right thing to do. And anyone who says 40 to 210 isn't a significant growth, well, and show me where the money would come from. If you're going to get rid of the funding which is actually providing for that, well, how are you going to provide for people?
Thank you, Minister.
How are you going to keep growing the way we're doing it, which is significant, which is dramatically improving people's health as well as their homes?
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Murphy, then straight back to the Minister to conclude.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Minister. I'll tell you how we can do what's necessary, not these small incremental increases for a scheme that is excellent but is completely underfunded. You're saying it's acceptable for people to wait 2 years when they're living in code. You are. You're saying this is great. We should be celebrating. It's not good enough. And where the alternative is, why don't we hit those who are responsible for the large portion of carbon emissions from this country? Why don't we hit the wealthy? You probably saw the report from Oxfam just last week. The richest 2 billionaires in this country have more wealth than half of the population. How about we hit them with a wealth tax, which would raise about €6 billion, and we would invest that in the sort of rapid transition that we need. The truth is, your plan of getting to 120,000 homes a year, it is not going to be reached primarily based on the warmer home schemes. It's certainly not going to be reached based on the extremely slow progress of the councils. It's a disgrace how long people in council housing have to wait. Instead, you're simply you hope to achieve that based on incentivising the wealthier households who can afford it with grant schemes. Absolutely, we should have grant schemes for them, but you're not putting enough money into those who need it most, those in council homes and those who would qualify for the warmer home scheme.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, to conclude.
Yeah, again, I take the point. Take the social. I hadn't included social housing. You're absolutely right. We need to do that as well. In the lifetime of this government, that's gone from, I'm going to memory here, I don't have the figures in front of me, but memory for about 10 million back prior to this government, up to I think it was about 90 last year. A 900% increase in spending is not small. Going 40 to 210, what's that? An 800% increase, whatever, do the maths quickly for me.
700%.
500% increase. That's not small. If we do 500% increase again, that would be transformative. And there's nothing to stop us, because the carbon tax, and every time, carbon tax in our country is progressive, it protects the poor, it improves social equality, it delivers guaranteed funding, it helps address the problem as well as providing for the solution, and you're opposed to it at every turn. But it works. It delivers social justice through the spending that increase in these warmer home schemes that I'm glad to hear you say is an excellent scheme and one we need to keep growing. We will do that.